Minnesota home sellers forecast for 2026. The market is changing. This is going to be different than what it's been in the years past. Here are the strategies and stats you need to take to be able to position yourself correctly in this market. In this video, we're going to go over the forecasted stats that are important for sellers for 2026. We're also going to go over how this market is changing for 2026 and how it compares to years in the past, and also the strategies you need to take in specific to what price range you'll be in. We've listed over 100 homes in Minnesota and Wisconsin just this year alone, and we can tell this market is changing. The 2026 housing market forecast, here's some stats that are important to sellers. One of the most important things to realize is one, price appreciation. How much more equity are you going to have throughout the course of this year? So forecasted on this is averaging around that 2 to 5% on the optimistic side, 1 to 2% on the conservative side. So we're going to see a modest price growth for your home this year. The other thing that's going to be really important with the stats that are coming out this year is going where interest rates going to be at. So this is very important for what's going to happen with price appreciation. Interest rates are looking to be hovering around 6%. Obviously, with the new Fed chair being elected, that may change a little bit. Most likely for the better is the kind of thought. So we may see interest rates into the 5. I think if we're on a very optimistic outlook, it's at 5.5, but most likely we're going to stay and hover around that 6% and maybe get into 5s just a little bit. The other stat that's going to be really important for home sellers this year is going most likely days on market's going to go up. Not in a scary amount. Inventory is going to start to rise a little bit more. It's going to give you more options if you're a buyer on this end, but it's also going to open up that there's going to be more competition. There's going to be more options for buyers out there. So those are the kind of the most important stats sellers need to be aware of if you're listing your house in 2026. Here's exactly how and maybe a little bit of why the market is changing in 2026. So I like to be able to look at past years in real estate to go, what year is this kind of like? So I think this is going to feel a little bit more like what it did in 2015 to 2019 when it comes to interest rates, inventory levels. So know that it's not pandemic and it's not the great interest rate increase that we've had in the years past. We're going to get to a more normal, almost balanced feel. This is still going to favor sellers. Inventory isn't increasing a ton into a space where month supply is getting above 3 and 4 months supply, where we'll start to see too much inventory and prices kind of can come down. We're not seeing that happen. So I think when you look at this to go, when we start prepping strategies for sellers this year, we're going, hey, what is this most likely going to feel like? How can we replicate what we've done in years past? And how should the conversation with our sellers change? How should the strategy change? Because I think the most important thing to realize for sellers is it's not the same as it's been in the years past, and you have to be informed of how strategically take that when it comes to listing your home. Josh has been one of the top listing agents and Coldwell Banker in Minnesota and Wisconsin for the last decade, and here's how he's prepping strategies for different price ranges for 2026.
So depending on the price range, and we'll start at the first-time home buyer price. Generally, that 400 and under is becoming the new norm of a first-time home buyer price range. And a lot of time with those sellers, be working with them to make sure the major things are done, because with interest rates, a little higher where they're at that 5.5 to 6.5%, buyers don't have the money to be able to make these major repairs with a roof, with a furnace, things like that. So making sure those things are done when the buyer comes in doesn't have to be the prettiest. I mean, obviously, if you can do those things, it's going to help your home sell faster and generally will help you recoup some of that. But for the most part in that price range, making sure your major things are done, because insurance, we've done a couple of videos on that. Insurance has become a major thing where if the roof is over 15 years, there's a lot of insurance companies that are saying, no, we're not going to insure you. Now all of a sudden, what they thought their estimated insurance was going to be is now higher because they had to go to another company and they're just charging more to recoup that cost.
For that price range, I think it's a few things that are going to be important for next year. One, they may get the multiple offers. You may be surprised at what you can get for your house in that price range. That might be a really competitive price range. Two, it's the major repairs have to be done, like you said, for affordability. As buyers who are buying that first house are putting every dollar they can just to be able to afford the payment. They can't also take on a roof, windows, siding, and mechanicals. That's going to be really tough for them.
It's always been the price range that has had continuous activity. There's always first-time home buyers in the market. People are graduating college and got their first job and ready to move. So that price range has, throughout my career, has always moved. And so just making sure sellers understand that, hey, to appease these buyers, these are some of the things you're going to need to to do moving forward.
Days on market for that price range should be a lot shorter than other price range. If you are in first-time home buyer pricing and your house is sitting for more than 60 days, something's wrong. So there's a very different price range where seller strategies should change based off what price range you're in. So now that 450, I would say, to 700 is a very different price range. You talk about different strategy for that?
Yes, because those sellers and buyers, generally the buyers don't have to buy. They're just, hey, my house I have, it might be getting too small, but I could continue to stay here. So sellers know and understand that your house better look in its top condition. You better not have paint on the ceiling, not have paint on trim. You'd be surprised how often we see that. Making sure, hey, is granite countertops an expectation in this price range? Generally it is, so we should probably have solid surface countertops. And also all the major things are done. Your roof is done, you have a newer furnace. Those buyers want to see move-in ready and be able just to move their family in. They don't want to have to do the repairs they did when they bought their first-time home buyer house. They want to move in. So making sure the house is, if you want to get top dollar, we need to look top dollar is kind of the slogan.
And I think it's really important to realize who that buyer is that buyer that's going to buy in that price range probably has a 3% interest rate on a house they bought for $250,000. And they're fine with staying there. They don't want to, but you have to impress them almost. And also in that price range, you are starting to get into new construction competition to going, why am I taking on this 30-year-old home at $650,000 that has a really old roof, that has bad mechanicals, that has bad windows, and it doesn't look as pretty as if I just go to Lennar and just get a base model at $500,000 and I'll finish out the basement later. So I think it's knowing that that price range also, when it comes days on market, is going to be much longer.
Correct.
You're not going to sell that in the first weekend, most likely.
Especially with the market turning into more of a balanced market, we're going to see more competition with the golden handcuffs coming off. There's going to be more of these sellers that are going to want to sell. They want to move up again. So now all of a sudden, that's what's going to take us to our next tier of that 750 plus.
This is the price range from 450 to 700 where it's detrimental to overprice your home.
Yes.
That is exactly what it is.
And to be underconditioned.
Yes, that is going to be a death sentence to you. You are going to sell for far less than you could have. Different price ranges at 400, you can overprice it and adjust. Somebody will take it then. You do that in those price ranges and somebody is going to have to get a deal to get your house sold. Now there's this 750 plus. Let's get into the kind of luxury market or $1 million plus, which is moving dramatically different than those other price ranges and also how it has moved in the past.
Right. Yeah. We've seen more home sales in that, let's call it 750 plus luxury market. There's been more home sales over the past probably 5-6 years than there ever has been. The transfer of wealth is starting to happen. So most of these are done by cash buyers. So they're not rate sensitive. We're not worrying about 5-6%, 7% interest rates because they have the cash to be able to do it. And yes, when they are walking into the home, again, they are expecting it to look like $1 million home, and the things done, they will change because they can afford to. So that price range is going to continue to move and continue to move quickly. There's not a lot of inventory out there for them. So they are, when they're out there, they're not listed long.
I think it's the $1 million plus sellers have this opportunity to sell their house and sell it faster than it has before for a cash buyer. It's realized that those buyers that are buying at $1 million plus, they maybe bought their house for $800,000 and it's at 2% interest rate. Maybe they've paid off the entire thing. They have a giant down payment. Stock market's going well. They've probably invested a lot in the market. They can choose what they get and they can afford it. That is the one weird kind of dichotomy of this market is this giant thing of haves and have-nots kind of thing. It's like first-time homebuyers are just trying to get into their house. The middle ones are still rate sensitive and get to choose and don't know when they're going to do it. So if it's not good, they'll just wait, right? That $1 million plus is just waiting for the right property and they'll do it because they can. That's how you should take the three different strategies based off of what price ranges you're in, because it is not the same all across the board. It is not even close to how you should. If you ask your agent, how should we price this differently? Or how should our strategy change based off of what price range we're in? And they cannot answer and doesn't understand the differences between them, find a different agent. That is case in point right there. But I think there are these things that for sellers, it's going to be a good market for you. It's not crashing. It's not terrible. You have to be a little more strategic than you have been in years past. But as long as you have the right information and make the right choices, you'll be just fine and it'll work and your home will sell.
Being a little more patient is going to be key, especially in that middle tier. That price point is going to take longer to sell because you have more competition. So just keep that in mind.
For sellers in Minnesota, understand that these these forecasts can change based off the season, based off new economic data. Understand that your strategy should change as well. Subscribe to our channel and we'll give you the insight of how that market is changing in real time.